Welcome to DXDAO product strategy chat for January 22nd. We're going to kick it off with a little intro from and a short presentation from Georgia Raskusin, who is a user researcher and has kind of been in this space, was at Consensus before, but is now on her own doing consulting for different projects and doing user research. So yeah, Georgia, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, sure. Very happy to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I guess you've already sort of set the scene, Chris, but we had a chat separate to this. And you invited me to join the call. So it's really nice to be here. Thanks to everybody. So I'll just explain a little bit about what I do and some of the work I do, and it's not going to take very long, 5-ish, 6 minutes, and then give people a chance to ask any questions that they might have. And we'll take it from there. So I'm Georgia. I'm a user researcher. I specialize in the crypto and blockchain space. I've personally been a crypto user since 2013. I actually, before I started working in the space, I've been a user researcher for more than 8 years now, working in e-commerce, UK government, B2B publishing, broadcasting, all of that good stuff. I was actually at a e-commerce company called moo.com, which specializes in business cards. People may be familiar with them. And so that was around the time of the last all-time high, around 2017, 2018. And at Moo, you could print as many business cards as you like for personal use. So I created these business cards, which was like user researcher interested in crypto. And what was happening around that time was that no one was talking about user experience in the crypto space. There were like 1 million meetups. Everything was about price, and nothing was about user needs, solving problems that users might have, all that good stuff. So finally, the planets aligned. I ended up working in the space where I could bring my expertise in user research into my passion for crypto. And I joined Consensus, where I've been working there for just over 2 years. I left in 2020, so 2021 is a new start for me going freelance in the space. So the kind of work that I've done is supporting all of these teams and a few more with understanding user needs, like getting into the behaviors and the psychology of people who use their products or people who don't, and understand why that is. It's getting to the why behind the what. Maybe we have quant data or analytics or on-chain data that tells us what actions are taking place, but we don't often understand why those actions are taking place. When we understand that, we can actually make some informed decisions. So a few examples of research I've done is for Filecoin, a big user study on the developer experience. They're really interested in how do we bring developers into our ecosystem. So I went away and did some user research, interviews and user testing with people who are trying to get into it to understand what are their needs, what are their motivations, what are the pains that they experience, and then what does that point to for Filecoin for what they should be doing to support those developers. So user can mean developer, it can mean end user, retail user, it could mean an institution. It's essentially whoever your product is for. For MetaMask, I've worked with them on a number of projects, but most recently for the MetaMask swaps feature, which is available in the browser extension. And then I've just recently finished a big global study for MakerDAO as well on a new product that they're working on. So that's the logo salad over with. This is like the what does it do? So I use these methods on the right to answer these questions on the left. And the questions that people come up with, they usually fall into these buckets. And these are the questions that the kind of research I do can answer. So who are our users? What can we learn about them that will inform our business, product, and marketing strategy? What market or user profile should we be targeting if you don't already know? How do people use our product now? And then also, how does that stack up against competitor products too? Why are we not achieving adoption and retention? And what features should we prioritize in the backlog? There's, of course, many more like different types of questions that could come out of it. But these are the main ones that I'm able to answer with research. So the methods, it used to be the case I could go and do ethnographic research. That means being in someone's location and spending time with them. not necessarily even, maybe not even that necessary within the decentralized, disintermediated blockchain crypto world, but certainly not possible in the current global climate. So most of the research I do involves in-depth interviews with people, understanding their world, getting into the nitty-gritty, hearing them vocalize for the first time something about themselves that possibly they've never done before, because no one has asked them the series of questions that get them to that. I also do a lot of user testing. That's around prototypes or products, concept and marketing testing as well. So, maybe you don't even have a product, but you've got an idea for one. It's a great way to test it in the market before actually applying any developer resource to it. And things like surveys as well. I also do some quant stuff like market sizing as well. And the reason why this is really important is because I like to use the analogy of a ship. So you might be on a product team, you might be in a community of builders, people trying to get to a specific destination. But in order to do that, especially to push the analogy further, choppy waters, which can push you off course very easily with different information and the ecosystem that we exist in, what you need is constant course correction and informing where you're headed with data from user research is really great for doing that. So this is also the reason why I don't recommend that you interview 100 users at the start or even 20 users at the start. That's not useful for you because you're going to point in one direction and just set off in that direction without getting the injection of little bits along the way. Of course, from doing user research, you might discover a new destination, which is the one you should really be focusing on too. So there's lots of benefits to doing a little bit often. And when I say a little bit, it's often just 5 users. In user research, it's all about qualitative findings, not quant. So what you do is you learn a lot from a small amount of people. Then we can go and test that with a large amount of people where we learn a little. So the combination of the two is really effective. And it's doing user research is a great way to deliver faster and save on development costs, but also around aligning a team around a common understanding. Very often we bring our own ideas about who the user is, what this product is for, what it should be doing. And that can cause, healthy conflict within team as well, but often disagreement and dissatisfaction. And also that takes time cutting through those things. So there's something very effective about going, here's some findings. All the team have watched some of the sessions as I invite people to watch the interviews and user tests that I do. And it's great for just taking off, running with it the next week after getting this stuff through. But also, I should say, and I'm hoping that this won't be the case very much further in the future, but right now in the crypto space, there are really not a lot of user researchers, and there are not a lot of teams doing this activity. So doing any user research is a competitive advantage right now. And the last thing I'm going to talk to before I take any questions from people is just the process, right? So what does this actually look and feel like if you were going to do some user research? So this is how I would do it. So all qualitative studies follow these steps, but let's say we were doing a survey, it might be very different, or a market sizing activity, totally different too. But basically, I would work with you to help design the research. So I'd run a workshop with everybody who's involved on the product or on this particular project to understand, what are your research questions? What's the thing that keeps you up at night? What's the stuff that you're disagreeing on as a team? What are the assumptions you have? And it's fine, we all come with assumptions. That's totally normal. It's great to have them listed, because then I can develop an approach to doing the research that's going to address all of that stuff. And I've worked with you to prioritize it as well. So then we define the user profile as well. Who is this person? What's the behavioral stuff about them? What defines them? Then I go and find those people, screen and schedule them, handle communication and incentives with them. It is best practice, and it's my preferred method as well, is to pay people for their time. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it shows a respect for their time, and also prevents people taking part because they want to help out on a particular project. And if we can remove that, we don't just want to talk to people who are already bought in, who care about the project, who are vested in it. Those are the people who want it to succeed and will come at the project with a different mindset from, say, the person who actually doesn't care. That they're using something else right now. Those are the people who we can find out a lot from, not just people within the tight community. So then I run sessions over video. I always invite team members to come and observe those sessions, whether they're interviews or user tests. It's quite engaging to watch it in real time and to hear it from the horse's mouth, do all the note-taking and recordings. And then it's a matter of analyzing the data. So my approach to this is a combination of top-down and bottom-up. Top-down is, these are the research questions that we had. So where's the answers in the data that answers that? And then bottom-up is, what's all the other stuff that surfaced? All the things in our blind spots that we just had no idea about, that we weren't aware of, that point to new opportunities, interesting ideas, all that good stuff. Then I'd wrap this up, apply recommendations to it. I always want it to be super actionable. There's no point in doing research which is just interesting. Just interesting is nice, but that's not something that you can necessarily work with. So it has to be actionable. It's got to be able to be embedded in the work that you're doing to be able to use it. So I'd help you do that. And a typical duration of a project might take 2.5 weeks, but it's how long is a piece of string? Just finished one that took 3 months, and last week I did one that took 3 days. So go figure. But this is the kind of work that I've been doing for clients now. Sometimes people have different sorts of needs, but yeah, I think I'll stop sharing there and I'll answer any questions that people might have.
Awesome, thanks.
I'll check the.
Yeah, just as like when I was thinking about this, obviously, like I think we could use it on a bunch of areas, but specifically it was kind of like Mesa and layer 2 stuff in general, just because Mesa, I think, is going through like a process of a product relaunch, and then layer 2 may introduce some other users to it. But I wasn't sure if other people kind of had questions or ideas for maybe how we could take advantage of this.
Curious what Geronimo thinks, because I wonder if Omen could benefit from this too, because not sure how well we understand our users.
Like I think we're in a rabbit hole, and I believe in Omen, and like I think we need this to get out of the rabbit hole and actually like ask normal non-crypto people about, or even like crypto people about what they think about Omen. Like I think I'm way too deep into believing it is good as it is, and I'm like, just by saying it right now, I don't think it's good as it is. Like it needs a lot of thinking about how to make sure the user experience is seamless and the best. Yeah. I'm skeptical it is right now, and it is probably like that.
I think it's very healthy to have some skepticism when we approach the things that we're building. We obviously also have to have the emotional commitment to a project in order to work for it every day and see it through. But it's also okay to challenge that too. I have my own. I'm even though I'm all in on crypto, I'm also very skeptical about some of the things that are out there, and I think that it's really healthy. The teams that are going to be able to pivot or make adjustments will survive longer than those that are heads down. I'm just going to build it anyway because I believe in it, without necessarily hearing some of the detractor signals that might be out there and using that information. It doesn't have it doesn't have to be we build this product or we shut it down. There's lots of in between, really. Yeah,
like, and also back in the days where the DXDAO kind of was born, I had the vision that all the products we made, they were actually like completely community driven, primarily because this this collective is like a transparency maximalist, and at the my goal was that the community is telling me how Omen should be evolved. And my question is to you, like, do you see a future where, like, first, do you see that already happening with traditional companies, that those products are actually community driven? My naive thinking is it's like we just gather data and then we tell the community what stuff they're gonna use. Or like, do you see a future where it is actually like really community driven and we are just like executing based on true signals from our users?
So I would need to know a little bit more about your community, as that's out of my, I don't have a lot of visibility on that, but I have, just to maybe give you some context, dealt with product teams that talk a lot about their community, but their community are token holders potentially, right? So let's imagine that they are that case. Well, you know, they're giving lots of signals about what they want the product to be, but those people have a different vested interest in the outcome of the project. It doesn't necessarily serve a need. It doesn't solve a problem for them. They just want their tokens to be worth a lot more money further down the line. I don't think that that's probably appropriate for you, relevant for you guys. Maybe it is, but that's just something to think about. We can get signals which obviously are given to us with best interest, you know, with best intentions, but they're not always the right signals we should be looking for. I even hear about people talking, well, you know, we want to, okay, well, let's just talk to, let's just focus on DeFi users. Well, DeFi users right now is actually quite a small, is actually a small number of people, right? You can take all the number of wallet addresses and then divide it by 2, because everyone's got at least 2. And then what are we looking at? And yeah, the volume is there in terms of money, but who are these users? When I've done DeFi user research, I did a big report on it, 2019. There should have been another one last year, if only, because things move pretty quickly. But you know, there is a lot of speculation, a lot of hesitation, and the reality is that there are far fewer people using these things because of its utility than they are using it to earn more money. And that's just the situation that we're in right now. I don't think that means that you can't build products exclusively from community who care about it. But my question is, why are these community people part of your community? I think that's interesting to find out. Is it about speculation? Is it about backing the winning horse? Or do these people actually get something out of the product? So if you can explore that a little bit, then that might point to who is it that might be worth speaking to find some of these answers out.
Those are great points. I totally agree. Like, people who just hold tokens, they're definitely influenced, and their feedback might be, not the feedback we actually want to get. So that's actually a pretty good point.
Would you say that crypto thus far has been almost entirely driven by speculation, and like the average, you know, your typical crypto user is actually a speculator today?
Only based on what I have seen, yes. You got, and then you have a subset of builders. That's what I've seen really in the work that I've done, but I don't want to say that that's necessarily true. I can't say that for sure. I don't have all the signals there to tell me that, but from what I've seen, I think that is the case. And it's you know, where there is growth, where there's an opportunity to adoption in new audiences, those are the hardest problems to solve. Right. And because there's such hard problems to solve, so often teams decide, well, let's just go where the money is, which is just in this small group of people. But what you're seeing is new products spinning up, people move their funds from one to the other for opportunity. And I think it's pretty hard for teams to sustain a product, right? Yeah, you could bring something in, get loads of attraction right at the start, but where's the retention? And retention comes from providing value. If you're not actually providing value to a user, in a speculation market, in a wanting to earn more market, people will go where the next opportunity is. Whereas, there are people, like, let's say for prediction markets, we maybe, and I've worked on a couple of prediction market projects, both within consensus and out of it. We sort of build for an audience who want to speculate on crypto prices, or maybe it's US politics, which has been popular every time I've done a study on this. It's always I know that Chris, you were saying that was some of the markets that were most attractive to users, but there's a huge audience out there who are not already in the space, who potentially could get a lot of value out of using something like this, gas prices aside. So just put that aside for a second. But the challenge of getting those people to care about the thing you've built is the hardest problem that I think we often it's like, someone else can deal with onboarding non-crypto people into crypto because it's too big of a problem for me. So I'm just going to do this instead. And we wait for these people to come. And the biggest challenge and the biggest growth opportunity for any product right now is getting those people on board.
Yeah, and I think the speculative nature of the crypto user base, if you will, I think explains the kind of wild success of yield farming and how that becomes a really popular phenomenon because it's all about kind of speculation, right?
Well, what problem does it solve? What problem does yield farming really solve, other than just to make more money? It's not solving a real need, so it's not surprising. And those projects won't retain users for very long if something slightly better comes out, because there's no affiliation with these things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think DX now, for the most part, has kind of resisted playing those games. I mean, there's a way to invest and buy DXD, but we haven't really done yield farming. It may be to our detriment to some extent, but I think the focus is more on building for the long term. And I think, we've already mentioned Mesa and Omen. I think those are great candidates for the kind of work that you do, because while they do have kind of a natural fit with the speculative user base, I think we are trying to look beyond that, right? And I think there are some kind of natural expansions of the user bases of both of those products around, prediction, information markets, and also like capital formation for Mesa. And I think Martin here, he's the product manager for Mesa. Oh, Martin, somebody muted you, I think, because you said some background. Wasn't me.
Not me.
Someone unmute Martin. There he is.
Is it better? I did listen, but I was on my way home, and it sounds very interesting, and I think that's a really important approach to do it. And I try to do it. I talk to different people and try to extract this just for myself to see where we are heading to, and but a more structured approach would be very nice to have, because we are really at the start, and I think if you got the start right, then you have, it's easier. It's easier because then you don't have to make a big turn somewhere, and But I'm just, the situation is I'm collecting a team right now, and we are three and a half people or so, and we are at the stage of a minimal valuable product, and maybe we talk next week. I think maybe makes sense. Yes, cool. That's from my side.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you very much for having me, everybody. I'll stick on for the rest of the call because I'm interested just to get some context, if that's cool with you. Be interesting to hear some of the discussions that are going on, but thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was really interesting.
Yes, always welcome to be. These are completely public calls to begin with, and of course you're welcome to stay and always join them.
Cool. So then just switching over to Omen, and I think Omen is just talking a little bit there, but Omen is got some big things going on, obviously with XDAI hopefully next week. I don't know if we'll. Hopefully we'll see a proposal maybe sometime today on that, but there was also a roadmap that Geronimo had started to put together on kind of Omen going forward, which I think is pretty helpful. And then there's some discussion about a potential Omen token. So I don't know, Geronimo, if you wanted to kind of kick us off on where we should focus today.
Yeah, I think John is probably better equipped with talking about the Omen token. We have I'm not sure like what exactly, like we have a draft, like a very, just a draft post. It's not really a post, just some notes about what we could do with an Omen token. Maybe I should also share that. But in general, like, I think we saw and still see misalignment with making partnerships, especially like with Gnosis now. And there are even like confusions about who's owning Omen, which is surprising because the DXDAO is owning Omen because the ENS it's owned by the DXDAO.
Yeah, I mean, so to do that, I guess before we get to what, maybe let's start with like why.
Yeah, I could maybe speak. I think a lot of these ideas came from Geronimo in terms of like what an Omen token could be used for. I mean, Geronimo and the Omen team, I think in general, I'm probably getting the attribution wrong, but like, some of the ideas on what you could actually do with the Omen token would be like staking it on Reality.io or whatever the Oracle provider would be to supply an answer, kind of like replacing, you have to use like ETH now. You could potentially use it to increase visibility of markets on Omen. So there's an idea about like burning the token in order to like, basically get a different position in the UI. And then like the biggest idea is probably that it would be a governance token, right? So the DXDAO would still own Omen, but it would delegate basically operational control to the, let's call it like Omen Guild. Like sub-DAO would be another word we've used, but I think it's important not to use the word DAO because I think that's just going to lead to confusion. So for now, I think Guild is the best thing I've heard. So if you have this Omen Guild, which is comprised of all of the Omen token holders, and hopefully a lot of them are going to be Omen power users, the workers, etc. Right? Like they would have operational control over Omen, like managing kind of the budget for the workers, for the squad, managing like partner incentives for Omen, handling product releases and approving the updates, managing curation within the product. So like things like which markets are valid, what's the list of collateral tokens, like which Oracle providers are being used. Like all of this would basically be managed at like a more like local level, so to speak, by this Omen Guild. I don't think we've really done much thought as to like how that guild would be set up. I think the initial thinking is it would look, we used DAO Stack Alchemy, similar kind of thing, but we'd have to figure that out. I think why it's a good reason, there's some like high level benefits for both Omen and DXDAO, which are good motivation for us to be talking about this now, right? Because like so far it's really just been an idea, and I think the next step would be to actually like make a more formal public floating of the idea via a DAO Talk announcement, right? So that we could get some community feedback, vet the idea, and then see if it really gets traction. So I think that some like really big reasons to do this for DXDAO are like incentivization, right? So if we have an Omen token, we can incentivize liquidity on Omen, whether that's L1 or L2. We can incentivize and reward partnerships, whether it's like API3 or Claros or Gnosis. We can even do other types, we can reward the existing users. We can incentivize even swapper liquidity for relevant tokens. and the token is really important here because it allows DXDAO to kind of pursue strategies which maybe otherwise wouldn't be comfortable with. Like I think if you, like we had just talked about how we haven't really done incentives for like liquidity mining and stuff. Well, if it's important for getting liquidity into Omen, I think it's it isolates the risk around doing that if we have an open Omen token, right? Like the success of that incentivization will like rise or fall with the success of Omen itself, and it won't. If for some reason it doesn't work, it's not like DXD is going to be overinflated because of it, right? So like I think one of the reasons we haven't done this with DXD is the DAO token that is like kind of ownership for the whole product suite, and it's hard to really like come to some like rationalization on like how much should go to one product versus the other, right? And the other important thing that's kind of related is I think having an Omen token will delineate the product in the market. I think there's a lot of confusion right now. Like we have basically a brand image problem for DXDAO. I was actually just talking with a couple of block science guys earlier this week. They had done some research on IDOs for one of their clients, and they mentioned Mesa as one of the things they were looking at, of course, because Mesa has had several successful IDOs. They didn't know that it was DXDAO, that it was behind Mesa, right? So, I mean, maybe Mesa is not the best example because we put more attention into the UI for Omen and Swapper, but I think the problem is a general problem. I think people fail to recognize like DXDAO's full product suite, like ownership of it. You know, somebody, I don't know if many of you are in the Discord yet, but somebody is in the Omen channel, and he's like, "What the heck is Swapper and Mesa? Like, what are these things?" You know, and this guy was in the Omen chat, right? So I think there's really like just a lack of recognition of what DXDAO is actually doing. I hate to speculate, but I think that might have something to do with the token price and the fact that it doesn't even reflect the book value, right? So it's sort of like the market seems to think that DXDAO's products, Omen, Mesa, Swapper are worth, not only are they worth nothing, they're actually worth like negative half of the treasury, which is kind of mind blowing. But I think part of that is just like people don't know. People just don't know. They're very used to in DeFi thinking about, looking at CoinGecko. Every product has a token essentially these days. There's only a few remaining that have yet to release a token, and you can find those on DeFi Pulse. And you can't find Omen or Swapper or Mesa by themselves in these. And I just think there's a huge gap between like what people recognize and what really exists. And a token will bridge that gap because it will force people to recognize that Omen is, of equal standing with any other DeFi product, that it's a competitive prediction market platform that should be like, as good or better than, if we do our jobs, it will be better than Augur this year, right? And I think the token will help people recognize that. So it's like branding, marketing, kind of PR, like all of that is aided, I think, by the token. So
yeah, I think like to your point, and this Keenan can probably speak better about this. We never had someone who's like communicating to the public. Like we just started with it a few weeks ago, and now we have like people who care about it. And I think Keenan has a plan about actually talking to the public. Like we never talked to the public. We even with announcement and feature releases, it was mainly done by Gnosis, and that is something we need to change going forward. And I'm sure Keenan knows exactly where we need to head forward. And yeah, that's my point.
I can't say I have a presentation ready, but yeah, that is definitely correct. I think starting to care about that aspect and getting tighter with our community and just communicating these things is incredibly important and has been ignored in the past.
Yeah, and like in general, the DXDAO at some point already plans to have a sub-DAO fractalization system, because I'm sure like a lot of people really don't care about market curation from Omen, and that's totally fine. But we need to make sure that the people who care can easily get access to the guild, join the guild, and then take ownership of Omen and make sure that Omen is successful. DXDAO is way too broad, and I expect that DXDAO is getting even more fractalized and more projects, and it's just healthy to give this growing community their own place on chain and allow them to maximize the participation from the DX, like from the Omen guild itself to the product. So especially with like scalable, with Omen being scalable on XDAI, like I see the guild as like a very, very important tool to compete with even like the centralized crappy version of Omen called Polymarket. Like we need to make sure we're actually competing against the decentralized ones who like leverage the centralization to provide the best user experience. We need to make sure we're trying to compete in terms of user experience. And I think the guild is like the powerful tool which no one can have because they don't have the DXDAO. And yeah, and the token itself is a tokenization, like we are actually tokenizing the Omen, the product, with combination of the guild. So it's like a tokenization of this, the actual community. And I see that as like something we never saw before. And I think that's like a beautiful experience and a showcase of, for ourselves and for the Ethereum ecosystem, of how this, how DAOs can actually like really be better than anything else out there.
Is there any thoughts or questions as to like why a token makes sense, or like what you might want to do with it? Because if not, the other, I think, angle here that we should talk a little bit about before handing it over to Keenan. I don't want to steal his time, but there's like how would the distribution work? And I think it's important to be very clear that like DXDAO owns Omen, right? This is not a spin-off. It's not like we're not like divesting from Omen. This is about like changing the structure. Like it's taking a step forward in the structure of how DXDAO operates, right? So, if we're talking revenue would flow through the token, through the Omen token, and DXDAO would own Omen token, and therefore that's how the revenue would flow into DXD. So DXD would stand to benefit from this, hopefully significantly, right? Like I think the draft idea on like. Is this did you share the link, Geronimo? Is that what is the numbers in here?
No, that's maybe Geronimo did, yeah.
Yeah, so if you scroll down, there's some
like the last link.
Yeah, this is a draft. The last link has some numbers on what an initial token distribution could be, right? So 70% at the top there to DXDAO, that's basically revenue. 70% of the ownership would still be like held by DXDAO directly. Revenue flows through that way. The rest would be kind of distributed for specific reasons to help Omen itself, right? So the second line item there is 5% to Gnosis DAO. They've done so much for the launch of Omen, for the framework, for providing liquidity. So like it's only fair, I think, to recognize those contributions and make sure they have a good stake from the start here. The second thing would be an airdrop to Omen users, liquidity providers, and DXD holders, right? So basically the community that has been fostering it so far. And at least I was thinking about this as like the Gnosis has been a big liquidity provider, but I was thinking that they would be excluded from the liquidity providing airdrop and kind of handled separately under their own kind of section, just to all encompass all the contributions that they've made and show appreciation for that. After that, and I think this is a really big one, liquidity incentives, right? Like providing incentives for people to provide liquidity on Omen. I think we'd have to think about that a little bit. We've said this before. Providing liquidity on Omen is a risky endeavor. It's sort of more of a professional activity than, say, like providing liquidity on Uniswap. But having a token, I think, will really be a great tool in the box for Omen to incentivize those liquidity providers in the future.
Yeah, to Shill again, like to George's point, if we would ask just basic speculative token holders about their opinion, it's not really a big signal for us because they're influenced by making money. But like replicating this beautiful rep system we already have with the DXDAO, where we see like all those people right now being like Friday 5 p.m. European time hanging out and talking about like the future of DXDAO, that's exactly what we want for the guild itself. Like we want to have people who care about the product, and those rep holders of the guild, they need to they need to make sure that the Omen, the product, is successful. And this is like the legit signal I guess, and that's something Georgia can also say something about that. But like those rep holders who are kind of like owning the product, they need to make sure it's successful.
Yeah, I don't really have lots to add to that other than I agree. I think it's worth looking at other, like really thinking about, okay, so who is the intended user if not just token holders? Maybe you have to be a token holder to use it, but rather than people who got in early or who vested, like talk to the people who haven't got their why, and think about those kind of users too. So I'm happy to chat about that as an approach.
Yeah, I think liquidity providers are, because I think there's like traders, bettors, and then liquidity providers, and I think they are like pretty distinct ones. I think we should be thinking a lot about liquidity providers, as that's something we're kind of figuring out. My kind of like broad thoughts in are more about like how the specifics end up playing out, because I think like the broad feeling on like how a token can be used in Omen, I think can be really helpful. And so just some of like the specifics that I think we need to have when we roll this out, and like not saying we need to have this for the announcement next week, but like when we are actually doing an Omen token, I think we need like the precise relationship between DXD and Omen token. Like I think that's incredibly important, and not just DXDAO has a bunch of Omen tokens, but like kind of putting some more flesh onto that. I think we also need specific plans for the token, right? And not just like liquidity incentives, but like how exactly that's going to roll out, because I think that's like the justification for the token, right? I think we need to like be very clear on like what the justification for the token is, and then like what rights Omen token holders had. And then I guess like the two other questions for me are, so I guess this means that like DXDAO will continue to fund Omen team out of the treasury, and out of kind of the ETH or the stable coins from the treasury. And so I think that makes sense, but thinking about exactly like the dynamics of that, it would make sense, I guess, if DXDAO is a huge owner of Omen tokens that is incentivized to fund that team. But I think that's something to be specific about. And then I think the last thing is very specifically on who owns the ENS Omen.eth, and how that like plays into that.
Yeah, I think ownership completely stays within the hands of the DXDAO, and any kind of control would be delegated, right? So it's like, basically trust is given, but not like ownership, right? Like you're kind of delegating the control to the Omen Guild. If something were to go wrong, it got corrupted or did something bad, like DXDAO could exercise its control and kind of change how things work. Right. I would consider it like, I think we should definitely signal to the guild that they're like they're definitely sovereign in the bounds we defined, and the DXDAO should only be like similar to MakerDAO with the global settlement. Like the DXDAO should intervene only if like the worst case happens, and we know like the guild is broken, it's infiltrated, it's like a cartel-like system, and then we need to settle the guild and check why the guild fucked up and try to learn from it and maybe start a new experiment. It should be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and I think as we're learning right now, the ENS is like incredibly powerful. Like owning the ENS is incredibly powerful. Owning the front end is incredibly powerful. So I think there is like a lot tied up into that there. But yeah, I mean, I think everything, it's kind of, all my questions are more like additional questions and adding on to these things and kind of unraveling it more.
I think everything you said, Chris, is like detail that needs to be kind of fleshed out prior to making a DAO Talk post about it, because I think we need to be very clear about these things covering all the bases from the beginning, even though it's like, needs to be vetted by the community. This could be a very complex topic, and I think we need to provide as much thought to it up front and give it as much as polished a feel as we can here. The last thing I would say is like the few other points on this distribution, the Swapper and Mesa sale. I actually think the launch of an Omen token could be a great showcase of the full DXDAO product suite. And we could actually, I think with some good timing on the product roadmaps, we could use Mesa and maybe be one of the first sales on Mesa. And we could use yield farming on Swapper. And that's more about like cross-pollination than like an actual need. Like the suggestion here is actually to do the Mesa sale denominated like in community tokens, right? So I think maybe an idea could even be just to burn those tokens, right? So the sale would be less about raising capital because DXDAO already has enough capital, and more about providing value to DXD, maybe even extend that to PNK or GNO by being a sink for those tokens. Like, basically offer this to the market, but you'd have to buy DXD first in order to buy Omen token in the Mesa sale. Yeah, so I think it could be a great opportunity to showcase everything all at once. Like we could have a Mesa sale, farming, all part of the Omen launch.
Cool. So I guess next step is, or there's going to be a shoot for a DAO Talk post kind of next week. And yeah, if anyone's interested, I guess Geronimo will kind of coordinate, but I'm definitely interested in helping and contributing. And I guess anyone else is interested can get involved.
There's one thing to also think about. We could airdrop for like external communities that doesn't know about us, that we think are relevant, right? This is what a lot of other tokens are doing right now, and it's a marketing trick, and I think it's great. We should probably use it. It doesn't even need to be much, but I think it's a good way to get some recognition and also like find the exact target group and airdrop them.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Because it's about building the community, it's definitely obviously like a forward-looking thing, right? And I think to answer like what's the point of yield farming, this is not necessarily yield farming, but I think all of this is about token distribution. Once you get the token in people of the right hands, then like it's literally like magic, because then they're incentivized to kind of do it. And like with YFI, like that's why it's been successful, is like they somehow got the tokens in all of the right like DeFi big players. And so figuring out and being very strategic about the communities for that, I think would definitely be a good idea.
Yeah, I think we should start thinking about like having a list of teams where we know they will be important for the success of Omen.
Cool. Keenan, do you want to? Yeah, I guess the roadmap that they had, I guess that's yeah, I guess Geronimo, that's
I can
publish that, or yeah, I mean it's in pretty good shape now, I think, just as a really good kind of overview and maybe as a model for what other projects or products can use.
Yeah, like we started to do the draft post a few days ago. It's getting to great shape from our side. Like my goal was while we actually have the discussions with Oren, who's like the conditional token manager from Gnosis, to like nail down exactly where, like a lot of stuff is actually like the DXDAO needs to do it, because we have an Omen guild who's working on the product, and a lot of stuff is just front-end work. But my goal was to like define what we want to plan, and then sync up with Gnosis in terms of what they are planning to deliver for Omen, and then try to merge it into like a joint roadmap to make sure that both teams know exactly what needs to be delivered for Q1. And that I really hope that we will have some like joint roadmap next week. But there's nothing bad about posting our side of the roadmap like on Monday. Just like at the end of the day, it's just a draft, and getting feedback from everyone is exactly what we want. And like, yeah, I think it will be published on DAO pretty soon, just to get it out, to make sure that we gather as much community feedback as possible. And why we actually do that, we're preparing like the DAO post for the Omen token to like really explain why we think it's the best idea ever. And then yeah, that's the next step.
Cool. Yeah, and obviously we didn't touch upon it, Omen on XI, like that's another huge thing. So lots of really exciting things with Omen. Cool. And then Keenan, do you want to talk about the Discord incentive, or kind of as we roll that out, what you're thinking about there?
Yeah, I know we're pretty close to the end here, and I wanted this to be kind of casual and brief anyway, so there shouldn't be any issue there. Those of you who aren't familiar yet, I think most of us here are. We just soft launched our Discord. We're doing a slow rollout, started with Keybase and Telegram as of yesterday, and seeing some really positive feedback. Looking to Twitter and a more formal kind of outgoing launch, I was hoping to have some kind of community incentive. The goal for that would be promoting, I suppose, Discord as the place to be for DXDAO, kind of discussion, information, etc. And additionally, having an incentive program like this could pique the interest of longtime holders, or our social media followers that may not be interested or have been out of the game for a while. On that note, I have a few kind of questions I'd like to discuss. I guess one, whoops. I kind of laid out a minor plan for how this would go. So we distribute half of it in a participation-based system. For those of you that don't know, there's participation rules in Discord, backdatable to 90 days. So for the last 3 months, it tracks how active you are in voice and text channels and gives you the respective role. So I think that half of this incentive should go based on participation, maybe to the top 3 participators for whenever we decide the incentive is complete. And the other half, I think, should go in a more broad kind of raffle system. Just come in, make yourself involved, get a role, which puts you in our notification channels, which will allow you to join a little soft raffle for a small amount of DXD. And I guess, is there any comment on that?
Sounds cool.
There's not much to go off for that, I suppose. So the next question would be, how much are we looking for? I think a minimum of, I think it should be in DXD for 1. I think that would be important, specifically because we're promoting this as the DXDAO Discord, and handing out ETH doesn't really make sense. But I think that I've had a broad range, and I guess I just want to ping off how much we were hoping this kind of incentive to look like. I think as a start, I would think 1,000. But I'm curious as to some external thoughts.
1,000. What's your
dollars?
Oh, sorry, dollars in DXD as a baseline.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was just, I like the raft, or like, I mean, everyone incentivize and do all that. I guess like the competition or like making it fun angle, I think that's like cool. And so I'm not sure. Yeah. But I think, yeah, I guess like 1,000 DXD, or I mean $1,000 DXD, I think kind of something in that. And I guess that would be good to just distribute immediately, or maybe we could do like a 2 or 3 month vesting thing, like a short vesting thing. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like a just kind of what is the like eye-catching way of doing this. I think that's more important than like getting like make sure we're rewarding like the people that are contributing the most. That it's kind of like a general way of trying to get everyone to contribute and be active. I think memes are a really good idea though. This is probably a good idea for doing something with the memes. And there of course is a meme channel. So I don't know if we could like incentivize that one more.
Yeah. I do have meme competition, at least one, but preferably a kind of recurring thing that is planned. That wasn't necessarily for this, but if you think that this could be a kind of package deal with a meme competition as well, we could look into that.
Yeah, I also think I'm not sure if you looked into it, Keenan, like the competition scheme on XDAI. I think that is also something we could like continuously play around with, where we start a competition and people can just submit memes, and we have rewards for the best 3 or whatever, and we can do it like a few times. Why not? And like even try Discord. Like we should try a lot of stuff now.
Yeah. Quickly to touch on Sky's point. I think I have personally planned and am hoping to reach out about it, but these stat rolls based on participation, I am planning on having a system for either nominating them for rep or we can do it manually perhaps. Since there's different tiers based on the weight of your participation in the Discord, I think it's a good way to engage them in the governance system.
Somewhat related to that, I actually sat in on SourceCred's community call this week, and so SourceCred does have like a Discord, like they integrate directly with Discord as a way of like coming up with numbers for this. That's a little bit more like holistic, and it would be like the whole Discord way. But it's like somewhat complicated, or it requires a tad bit of like technical work, but maybe this is a more like ad hoc way of we could do it just using the Discord stats themselves. Of course, we'll need the heat map to do that.
I'm going to be the heat map guy forever now.
Sorry, no. Sorry to derail that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think just different. I mean, rep is cool too. And so I mean, maybe it's just like calculating these or kind of coming up with initial things. And obviously we'll need to solve like the distribution of rep problem too with gas stuff, but that's a little bit separate. I think just getting incentives out there is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing we're liking 20 DXD with no vesting. I guess the final question would be is how exactly would we want to distribute that? Obviously, I'm very comfortable with taking it and distributing it, but I'm not sure how that would look.
Trust the middleman, I think, is the way to go here. It's just, I mean, gas costs basically make anything else infeasible. The same with vesting, right? Like you can't giving out 1 DXD in a vesting contract is stupid because you'll spend more money on the vesting contract.
Can't you do like 1 vesting contract and then like issue the token? Like, I guess, could you tokenize the vesting contract?
So the payroll system that we're working on with BlockRocket will make it so that you don't have to deploy your own new vesting contract for everything. Once we have that, we'll maybe have some other options. But for now, vesting is, at least that I'm aware of, there's no good solution other than deploying it per individual recipient, which is prohibitively expensive for small amounts.
So you think middleman is the way to go?
It's the only feasible way.
Yeah, I mean, we could obviously do multi-sig if we were, as a way too, but either way. And I guess like this was how long would we want this campaign to go on? Because I guess like the reward kind of probably at the end or something, right?
Yeah, it would be done at the end, and I would anticipate probably 2 weeks, maybe 3. And then from there, we can discuss a more consistent schedule of community incentives and whatnot and simulation.
I was just wondering how much would it amount up per person, like the rewards, like if you do 20 DXD.
From the, let me do some quick math here.
Or maybe
with
another.
DXD, yeah, with 20 DXD in the layout I proposed, which I think sounded like we were okay with, maybe. There would be 5 raffle winners. That would be 2 DXD each, if that's right, which is roughly $370.
Cool.
And then the participation rewards would be slightly higher than that.
Would it make sense to expand the numbers a little bit, like top X number, like active participants or something?